You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
This is Rod Mahood, your in-game voice of the Niagara IceDogs, and you're listening to the Dog Pound Podcast on the Armchair GM Sports Network, your podcast source for all game analysis, team interviews, and up-to-date news regarding the Niagara IceDogs.
Perlini! Overtime! IceDogs win! They score! Verhage was also jamming away. It's a power play goal for the IceDogs. And they score! Hosang, first goal as an IceDog. Strom stops Shipley. Richie scores! Gets it to Akil Thomas. Thomas has the angle coming in. He scores!
Welcome into another Niagara IceDogs game recap right here on the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of your Niagara IceDogs, proudly brought to you by Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family in all four of their great Niagara region locations. Brandon Caputo and guest co-host tonight, the play-by-play voice of the IceDogs, Steve Clark, on YourTV Niagara. Going to break down the IceDogs' big victory tonight against the North Bay Battalion, a 7-5 score here on a Saturday night in front of 3,010 at the Meridian Centre before hitting the Thanksgiving break. Guys, make sure to give us a follow at Dog Pound Podcast for all of our IceDogs coverage. And thank you to those today listening on YouTube Live and those listening the next day on your favorite on-demand audio platform. So with that said, Steve, thanks a lot for coming on today. Cam's on the DL day-to-day, should be back next week, but appreciate you being able to fill in, before we hit the Thanksgiving break and have those turkey comas tomorrow.
Well, my meal is tomorrow, so definitely will be a turkey coma. But I am up early on Monday. My daughter is playing in a little fun 3-on-3 turkey bowl hockey tournament, so I'll be up early on Monday. But I will be well fed. Some may say stuffed, but well fed at the very least.
Yeah, so we'll get into the game stats, the scoring summary, and we'll have an extended post-game with IceDogs head coach Ben Boudreau tonight. We'll also get Steve's player of the game later on tonight. So with that said, Steve, you called the game tonight, so you would know better than anybody. That was back and forth. The IceDogs, a terrible second period last night against the Owen Sound attack, which led to their demise and their first loss of the year. They are able to come out with a 7-5 victory against this North Bay Battalion team in a Central Division rivalry, improved to 5-1 on the season. I know it wasn't the best game from start to finish, but this is a game, maybe the last 2 or 3 seasons, that the IceDogs would come out on the other end of this.
Yeah, it was a weird game, to tell you the truth, because in the first period there were stretches of hockey in which it was whistle-free and back and forth, and then the IceDogs jumped out to that 5-1 lead. But even when it was 5-1 in the second period, Brandon, you don't feel comfortable because North Bay was out shooting Niagara pretty badly, and then, of course, the pushback with a couple late goals, and you're kind of wondering, is this going to be similar to last night in which the wheels come off? And the IceDogs, I would say, fended off the North Bay Battalion. It would be the best way to put it because, North Bay kept coming, but to their credit, Niagara responded. And no matter how you look at it, it's 2 points against a divisional rival, and they can't take those away.
And before we get into all of that, we talked in our Cully's pregame report about the lines moving around because of Matthew Paris being on the shelf right now. They actually started with 7 defensemen tonight and 11 forwards. We'll get head coach Ben Boudreau's analysis on why he went with that decision. But Darcy DeWatcher got in the lineup as the 7th D. Rafik Dianov had originally been the 4th line forward that came out after warm-ups. What did you think from the forward lineup that had to be kind of jumbled up?
Well, I mean, there was good chemistry developed, with Alex Asadorian's line. I think he was playing with, Gallianoff, and I think Levin might have been part of that line. Here, let me start with the first line. I actually felt that they took a little bit to get comfortable, even though Robrick and he played together a lot last year with Gavin Bryant at center. Took a little bit for them to kind of gel, and Robrick, one of his quieter games, still a pretty good game, but then, it was Wasselin and Doherty and Asadorian, and I thought that line gelled together pretty effectively, and then they rolled with, with Crete, Zada, and Ray, and I thought Mason Ray had a very, very good game as well. Good physical, hard-hitting game, and and then Levin, Gallianoff, Dyanov didn't play. Levin and Gallianoff put on the fourth line, I think, was just a little bit of say, okay, guys, it's time to pick it up. And what happened? Levin did get an assist on Asadorian's goal. Gallianoff gets his first goal of the year, so they responded well too. So all told, it wasn't bad. That's about what, and that's kind of, you're like, they scored 7 goals. Why are you saying that? Because I did feel that it was a little bit helter-skelter. There was lots of turnovers, things like that. But 7 goals are 7 goals.
We'll get into all of that because I have some thoughts on the way this game was officiated tonight. But regardless of that, we'll start with our game stats tonight, brought to you by Gales Gas Bar, your go-to gas station in the Niagara region. They're not just a gas station, they're a local tradition, because when it comes to fuel, you're going to Gales with multiple locations across Niagara. As far as the shots on goal go, Steve, 17-8 for North Bay in the first, 19-11 in the second, and 12-9 in the third. So North Bay led in the shot department in all 3 periods. They come away with a 48-28 advantage in that sense. So Charlie Robertson definitely came up with a big performance against his former team tonight. But the IceDogs get 7 goals on 28 shots, so they're going to be pleased with that production.
Yeah, absolutely. They were very efficient with their scoring. I said to you off air, and I was saying to the guys when we had our post-production meeting, and I said to Ed on the air, I said, this team can score. And most of their scoring has come from the forwards. Virgilio gets the first goal, I believe, by a defenseman all season long. But this team can really, really score. And tonight they got scoring from the different sources, because last night it was Loshko, he, and Robrick who scored the goals, right, with Robrick having 2. Tonight you get a couple from Loshko, obviously, but you get support from Asadorian with 2, Virgilio and Crete and Gallianoff. So you need those secondary guys to pick up their game, and they did tonight in the scoring department.
Yeah, and we look at it after that, the power plays, 2 for 5 for North Bay, 1 for 5 for the IceDogs, but at one point the IceDogs only had 2 power plays, I believe, until midway through the third period, and I don't know what's been going on the last 2 days, but again, it was both ways. I'm not just going to sit here and say that Niagara didn't get some calls, but there was some stuff going on in this game. The yapping between the benches. I know it's a rivalry game, and there's some players that have some familiarity, some former IceDogs like the LeBlancs and the Rides and things like that. So there's going to be some gamesmanship there, but I don't know. I felt like the refs kind of lost control of this game at times tonight, Steve, and I think it just got a little bit of funky with some of the stuff we saw. But just like last night and what you and Ed Burkholder talked about on the TV broadcast, that head coach Ben Boudreau, he can be a fiery guy, but for the most part, he kept his composure the last 2 nights and didn't let that affect him and have that a reflection of his team. They stayed in it. They fought. North Bay kind of got back into it with those 2 power play goals, but they were able to fight through the adversity and be able to come away with the 2 points. Yeah,
I'm not one who does talk a lot about the officiating. I do think they have a very difficult job to do, and I think some of the issues that people have with officiating are things that are kind of beyond the officials' control, because the league has told them to call games a certain way, and they're trying their best to do that. That said, last night was a very curiously officiated game, and tonight I thought was a curiously officiated game, because they called like ticky-tack stuff and, little hooks and holds and all that kind of stuff. And then, some of the other stuff, they would kind of not really get engaged with the players and call. So I'm going to say it was an unevenly officiated game. And normally with a game like we had tonight, in which it was run and gun, it was back and forth, you usually either see very few power plays, or you do see the power plays even out a lot more than they did tonight. And in Niagara, steady parade to the penalty box, and said North Bay got their power play going late, but the penalty kill was actually a strong part of Niagara's game.
What did you think of the power play tonight? I know the numbers are kind of construed there with the late power plays that they did get. Loshko got 1 late, but technically 0 for 2 before all that stuff happened. What did you see from the setup tonight?
They came out of the gate, they're 5 for 10 on the power play. Obviously, you're not going to maintain that, but then, they were kind of like, they came up empty last night, and they were on a little bit of a slump. I thought that, the they are able to pass the puck around pretty well, and the 4 forward and 1 defenseman that they're rolling out both times is something that has been effective. I think Loshko is a big part of that. I mean, he is somebody who could distribute. He's a veteran. He slows the game down. He is very, very effective, because the Robricks and even the Kevin Hees haven't been power play producers because the power play has been so poor the last couple of years. So Loshko is certainly a calming feature. And the Ice Dogs have Browdy can run power play, Virgilio can run a power play, Wysick can run a power play, even Shanowski, though he doesn't get much of an opportunity, can run a power play. So they have different options from defense. So I think it's very good. Sometimes they move the puck so fast they get ahead of themselves, but at the same time, though, that's kind of the power play. If they can stick in this kind of like 25% ratio or a little bit lower, then they'll be in good shape.
And you mentioned Loshko kind of being that bumper guy has really added a whole new dynamic to that power play, and a power play that was dead last in the league last year at 10%. So it's been a lot better so far through 6 games this season. As far as the faceoffs go, the Ice Dogs lost in that department 37-26 to North Bay. Their leaders on the faceoff dot: Loshko 10 of 22, Asadorian 8 of 12, Zada 3 of 9, and then Mason Ray 2 of 4, who was perfect last night. Is there anything that stuck out to you from the faceoff dot? The Ice Dogs, it didn't go in their favor there.
Well, the Ice Dogs simply weren't very good on faceoffs. We had lots of replays in which Ice Dogs would lose faceoffs cleanly, and boom, opportunity. It happened like 4 or 5 times in the first period. I think Procession at one point was practically perfect, and he was clearly decisive in terms of face-offs over the Ice Dogs. So I think the Ice Dogs recovered late with the face-offs, but it wasn't a strong aspect, really, of their game. And the 59% to 41% that I saw, a little bit flattering. So it's 2 things you have to look at. And this is what Ed was talking about more, is that winning face-offs is one thing, but then face-off assignments afterwards are something that I think Ice Dogs will need to tighten up a little bit.
Yeah, there's also always those little details that don't show up on the score sheet, right, Steve? But you mentioned Procession. He was their best man, 19 of 29, and Richter was 8 of 10. So they definitely got the better of the Ice Dogs in that sense. We'll get to our scoring summary tonight, brought to you by the Niagara Employment Help Center, helping people find work in Niagara since 1983. Check out their up-to-date job board at ehc.on.ca to find your next work opportunity today. Matt Virgilio got the Ice Dogs on the board here, Steve. His first goal as a member of the Ice Dogs, kind of just creeped in from the zone there, from the blue line and the point, and was able to risk that one past
Larocque.
I was thinking McIver, but he didn't play tonight. It was Charlie Larocque that started for the North Bay Battalion tonight. But good for Matt Virgilio coming over from the Sioux Greyhounds. We know he brings a lot in the defensive zone, but for him to get on the board and open the scoring for the Ice Dogs, that was big.
He's a lot more physical than I remembered him last year. We only get to see Sault Ste. Marie once a year, but he's a lot more physical than I thought. Defensively, I think he's very strong. He is getting caught up and getting a couple penalties, but I think that'll clean itself up as the season goes on. I don't think anybody's doubting his offensive ability, even though he's only had 15 points in each in his first 2 seasons. And he looked like a very confident shooter. Puck is on his stick. Boom. He blasts it past Larocque, and it's that first goal for an Ice Dog defenseman all season long.
Wow, that's a stat right there. So the Ice Dogs getting some production from the back end that's obviously going to be welcomed more of as they go on here. But then we got to the 16:43 mark of the first period, and Alex Asadorian, again, one of those guys that head coach Ben Boudreau, along with Galyanov and Levin, wanted to send a message to, and it really woke Alex Asadorian up, especially tonight. He's able to get that goal from Mike Levin and Jack Brody, but gets the Ice Dogs a 2-0 lead late into the first period. The Battalion did get a goal less than a minute after that procession from Bronson Ride and Owen Van Steensel to cut the lead to 2-1, but that was the score at the end of the first period.
It was great to see Asadorian get on the board, and Levin, never a bad thing. You throw it at the net, you've got a little bit of traffic out front. Sometimes you need a goal like that to get going, and good for Asadorian, but it only took 18 seconds to respond for the Battalion. They always say the most important shift after a goal is the shift right after the goal. Yeah,
and it worked for North Bay in that sense. We get to the second period, and this was a goal-filled middle period. We'll start off here. Max Crete with an underrated play by Mike Levin to keep the puck in the zone, kind of restole the puck after the Battalion had gained possession of it, got it down low to Max Crete, and he's able to get 2 whacks at it coming from behind the net and gets it past the goaltender. I've loved what I've seen from second-round rookie Max Creed so far, Steve. His 4th goal of the year, and just continues to show his bulldog mentality out there.
He is a fun player to watch. He obviously plays with a lot of edge and a little bit of an emotion, and you can see that as well. But very creative offensive player, and you put it right. First opportunity, nice save by Larocque, but he stayed with it. Not easy to do when you've got a lot of traffic out front, and that's a goal scorer's mentality, right? If the puck is still free, I still have an opportunity, and he put it away.
And then Alex Asadorian gets his 2nd of the night to extend the IceDogs lead. Sean Doherty and Brady Wasson with the assists on that one. And Ivan Gallianov, finally, the monkey off the back for number 92 in the IceDogs. That's a guy that has been getting chances, but needed to do that little bit extra to finally get rewarded there, and Alex Asadorian assists on that for his 3rd point of the night. So those guys, Asadorians and the Gallianovs, coming through with the goals and showing that depth scoring that Niagara has when they're firing.
Definitely something that Gallianov needed. I noticed he'd been playing a lot on the perimeter. He wasn't getting, involved, and he's a small forward, so he's got to utilize his speed and get to those areas a little quicker than most players, and, it was a nice goal. Good shot, good finish, and he's the type of guy. I mean, you know him a little bit more from the ice, but you see the videos that the IceDogs put out, and he's a loose guy. He's got a lot of personality, but when you have a lot of personality and you're not doing it on the ice, then that personality doesn't become quite as engaging, if you know what I mean. So now he starts to produce, gets a goal, and maybe that will get him going a little bit more of a hot streak, because he can score. I mean, he had good totals for a first-year forward who didn't start the season in the lineup like he did last year.
And a 4th rounder that was overlooked by the Rubriks, Zazadas, and even the Artem Frolovs of the world, because he was drafted after those guys made the lineup and really made an impact. So when Ivan Gallianov gets going, you like to see that for the IceDogs. Then North Bay battles back with 2 goals from Jacob LeBlanc and Owen Van Steensel, the second being on the power play. Less than 2 minutes apart from each other, and you're thinking, okay, like the IceDogs had a fairly good lead in this game, 5-1. It's now a 5-3 game. And going into the 3rd period, North Bay's got some momentum, but that was one of the power plays that I thought was a little bit questionable. But regardless, the IceDogs have to be able to, as you mentioned, go through that adversity and lock down these wins because they haven't led in many games, so they're learning how to win these sorts of contests.
Yeah, good pushback by North Bay. Van Steensel, who I said on the air, hadn't scored a goal yet, but had like 26 shots, so you knew it was going to come. He was a 41-goal scorer in the league last year, and he gets kind of a fluky one because it's behind the net. It's off Robertson, off Chinowski, I believe, and into the net. So it's one of those ones that, a goal scorer needs, and now they're going to come in bunches for Van Steensel. So it's a good thing they only got one here and we can turn the page on, on Van Steensel. But that definitely made things scary, and especially when the North Bay gets a late power play and starts pushing late in the seconds. Yeah,
and then, I mean, it was a weird play because Van Steensel he was behind the net, and he tried to force a pass out front, and it went off of a body and went over top of Robertson. I'm happy that the IceDogs goaltender didn't let that affect him too much going forward. We get to the midpoint of the 3rd period there, Steve. The Battalion are on a power play, so they can get this thing really close here, if not tie the game with a couple of shots here. But Andre Lashko is able to score shorthanded. Again, I think that might be one that Larocque would want back, but regardless, nice little shifty move in the zone by Lashko with a little bit of patience. Kevin He gets him the puck there, and he's able to wrist that one for his 1st of the night, and a big goal for the IceDogs momentum-wise.
Yeah, shorthanded goal are always momentum drivers for the team that gets the shorthanded goal and killers for the team that had the power play. And it was, he and Lashko, very dangerous duo killing penalties. And you remember last year, the one aspect of the IceDogs game that was very, very strong was their ability to generate offense while shorthanded. And that continued on. It's the 2nd shorthanded goal of the season for Niagara. You're right, it wasn't the hardest shot. There was a little bit of a screen in front of Larocque. I do think he wants it back, but again, that's that natural ability that Andre Lashko has. He had options to feed it to Kevin He. He could have done a lot of things. He decided to shoot it low, and it worked out.
North Bay got 2 more goals after that, so it made the Lashko shorthanded goal even that much more important. Moses gets his first since coming over in that trade for Dallin Wakely from Barrie, and then Jacob Therrien gets another one on the power play. So the IceDogs give up 2 goals there within about a 3-minute span, and it's really a 1-goal game at that point, and you're saying, okay, are the IceDogs going to be able to close this thing out? A well-coached North Bay team under Ryan Houlihan, a team that's been to the Eastern Conference Final the last 3 years, even though a very much saturated lineup compared to what we've seen them with before. It was weird for me seeing Moses wore Ty Nelson's number 24 tonight. I had to take a couple looks and who's 24 if Nelson's not out there, but regardless, the IceDogs were able to close it out there with a late power play. It was actually a two-man advantage, and the IceDogs did get the goal there from Andre Loshko in that bumper spot, once again taking the pass from Andrew Wysick, and the Seattle Kraken prospect getting the last 2 goals for the IceDogs to seal it.
Well, I mean, it was North Bay that kind of imploded and kind of with the authors of their own demise. Procession gets, I'd argue, a marginal penalty, but that was a lot of those tonight, and then he gets another 2 for unsportsmanlike conduct, and that kind of ended. I didn't say ended, but it certainly put a crimp in any hopes that North Bay had of coming back, as the IceDogs, with that power play, there was only just a little over 2 minutes when they had that opportunity on the power play, and then they got a 2-man advantage, and Loshko buried a second of the game to make it 7-5, and there was some silly stuff towards the end, and a kind of a half fight between Scott and Bronson Ride, and a couple of those other things. So yeah, untidy, but the IceDogs persevere in the end.
7-5 is the final score here, Steve. Anything else that you want to bring up from the game itself that didn't show up on the score sheet?
Well, I said on the air, I don't think they're going to be putting this game and the game tape in the Hall of Fame here at the end of the Meridian Centre here. But as I said at the beginning, when you're able to beat a divisional rival and you're improving to 5-1, then that's a good thing. And it doesn't matter how untidy the victory might look. And it was an untidy victory, to say the least. It's still a win. It's still 2 points. Now you come out of the weekend on a high and get ready for 3 games in 4 days next weekend with Ottawa in Kitchener and home against Kingston.
And a great bounce back effort from what we saw against Owen Sound last night. So that was almost great in the sense that you don't want to lose a game, but you're able to get right back at it and redeem yourselves from a team that was a winnable game last night, and I think they didn't work as hard as that Owen Sound team to get it done. Yeah,
I said on the air, that Owen Sound team, they're a difficult team to play against because they're not a fast team by any stretch of the imagination, but they've got so many big players. I think 8 or 9 players, 6'3" or above. And those guys are difficult to play against. They forecheck hard. They have long reaches. And Owen Sound will have to bring that sort of work ethic to win games this year. And quite frankly, they outworked Niagara, who did stop skating in the second period and paid for it.
Yeah, so the IceDogs bounce back tonight with a big victory to advance to 5-1 heading into the Thanksgiving break, which, Steve, you're going to have to fact check me on the last time the IceDogs got 5 wins before the Thanksgiving break to start a season. We'll have to get a rain check on that one.
Yeah, I'll have to do a little bit of research. You can't expect me to have that at my fingertips, can you?
No. We'll get that from you next week. But we're going to hit a commercial break. We're going to come back. We're going to get head coach Ben Boudreau's post-game, get our reactions to that, and get Steve's player of the game as well. So stay right here. We'll be right back on the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of your Niagara IceDogs, proudly brought to you by Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family. Back after this.
Fuel up your day with Gale's Gas Bars. They're your go-to gas station in the Niagara region. Remember, at Gale's, they're not just a gas station, they're a local tradition. Whether you're hitting the road or staying cozy at home, choose Gale's. Gale's Gas Bars provide reliable fuel that keeps you moving. Stop in for quality you can trust and service with a smile. Don't settle for less. Head to Gale's Gas Bars today. Because when it comes to fuel, you're going to Gale's! Learn more at gales.ca.
Did you know that the Global Pet Food stores in the Niagara region are all independently owned by members of the local community? We believe that pets are truly part of the family and are a source of joy in everyday homes around the world. Yet that living, loving experience usually doesn't happen all on its own, but takes extra effort to create and maintain. And we want you to know that the owners and staff at Global Pet Foods are always there to help you keep it going, any way we can, because we believe. Proud show sponsor of the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of the Niagara IceDogs. We hope to see you at one of the following locations across Niagara: 3643 Portage Road in Niagara Falls, 160 Highway 20 in Font Hill, as well as 400 Scott Street and 344 Glendale Avenue in St. Catharines. Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family.
The great guys over at Hockey Stick Man are sponsoring this video. If you play hockey but are sick of paying upwards of $400 for top-end sticks, check these guys out. There is seriously no better place to shop. The guys are fun, easy, and offer a stress-free experience from start to finish. They get pro stock sticks from major junior teams right up to the NHL teams and sell them for half the price that the same stick would sell for at a retail store. To further support their mission of saving hockey families money, they offer closeout options, which entail taking last year's retail models and blowing them out for less than wholesale prices. It's literally the best prices on the internet for their sticks. And the best sticks of all may be their Pro Blackout series, which provide a top-end stick with no graphics and literally less than half the price of a branded top-end retail model. It's always been their best-selling stick despite super cool pro stock options. It's a no-brainer to shop with these guys, and trust me, they are beauties. Head over to hockeystickman.ca/thearmchairgm and get $15 off your first order. That's hockeystickman.ca/thearmchairgm to get an additional $15 off your first order when you sign up on their website. Check out our friends at Hockey Stick Man.
Wild Bill's Auto Repair is your local center for auto maintenance and repair in the Niagara region. Since 2012, Wild Bill's Auto Repair and Body Shop has been helping customers stay safe and confident on the road, knowing their vehicles in top running condition through their services. Located at 7868 Oakwood Drive in Niagara Falls, the garage started as a tribute to the owner's father, William Robert Hunter, who passed away, continuing the same community spirit and high level of service which customers came to expect from him back at Hunter's Auto Repair. Their multi-award-winning auto shop has earned the trust of the Niagara community with its fair treatment of all customers, who can feel confident they'll get the trustworthy advice and repairs during their visit. Their experienced crew loves meeting new people and looks forward to forming a lasting partnership for the care of your cars. To find out more or to book service, contact them today. 905-358-7868 or wildbillsauto.ca. Wild Bill's Auto Repair, helping customers stay safe and confident on the road since 2012.
This is Alex Asadorian.
Hey, it's Ryan Roberg.
This is Ivan Galyanov.
This is Gavin Bryant.
And this is the
Dog Pound Podcast,
The official podcast of the Niagara IceDogs.
Welcome back to part 2 of today's Niagara IceDogs game recap, following the win against the North Bay Battalion by a 7-5 score. Brandon Caputo and guest co-host tonight, Steve Clark, the play-by-play voice of the IceDogs and YourTV Niagara, filling in for Cam tonight. Live from the Meridian Centre, live reaction here on YouTube Live. Thank you to everybody tuning in on our live stream, as well as those listening the next day on demand on your favorite audio podcast platforms. So with that said, Steve, before we hit to head coach Ben Boudreau on the Wild Bills Auto Repair postgame, you mentioned the IceDogs will have 3 games coming up next week. 2 of them are going to be at home, so that's a good thing for the IceDogs if you look at it. And 5-1, the CHL top 10 rankings came out. They were 8th this week. Maybe that was a little bit premature. We saw them get a wake-up call against the Owen Sound attack yesterday. But you don't want to get too ahead of yourself, but with what we've seen the last 2 or 3 seasons, and you've called the games for this team since their inception in Niagara here in 2007, 2008 season, does it start to come back and get that same feeling we've seen from some of those great playoff teams that we've seen over the years, and starting to really feel like this team is going somewhere after what has been a very tough few years for not only just the organization but the fan base as well, that things are starting to really turn around here?
Yeah, I've been calling hockey for a lot of years, right? Since the 17th year. So I'm really happy with the start and the 5-1 record and the bounce back that the IceDogs had tonight from a loss last night. But I am going to temper my enthusiasm for now, because with 3 opponents next weekend, they could come out of that and be 5-4. Right. They could come out of that and be 8-1, and then all of a sudden you're looking, well, geez, Clark, you're an idiot for doubting this team. But it's early, and we've seen so much uneven play in the OHL. I mean, I was just looking at some of the games tonight, and I don't think I've ever Owen Sound last night got a hat trick from Connor Smith. They get a hat trick tonight from Landon Hookey. Break open a 2-2 tie, score 5 in the third period and beat Peterborough. Erie scores 5 in the third period and comes back against Windsor. So there's a lot of weird dynamics early on in the season. That said, though, the 5 wins, you can't take them away. IceDogs have a little bit more of a home heavy schedule. and they're taking advantage of it.
Yeah, they are, and we see as guys start to trickle back from NHL camps, what we really, or NHL, I guess, in the case of Jet Luchenko, he's still up with the Philadelphia Flyers, so another loss for the Guelph Storm 2 years in a row with Poitras and now Jet Luchenko. But we've seen now that these are going to be the rosters moving forward now for most of the teams in the league. Maybe the first week or two was a little bit not what we'd see, especially from the guys like London, when you have top-end talent that isn't back. But really, the IceDogs haven't played teams that have been missing 3 or 4 guys that were up at NHL camps. And I think that what we've seen through the first little sample size here through 6 games, you're seeing some encouraging things. Yes, they're still a young team, and there's growing pains, as you mentioned, ugly parts of certain games and that. But from what we've seen the growth of this team be already under head coach Ben Boudreau, I think that playoffs are an expectation for this team. Whether they're going to stay at the top of the conference or not, I don't expect that to happen. But if they can still remain in this thing and be able to really get there coming into December, January, February, playing those meaningful games down the stretch, it's going to be big for those young players.
Well, there's the thing right? You want meaningful games, and also you want them to be in good position so they don't become the sell-off team, at the trade deadline. You want this team to kind of gel together, because there are some special elements with this team right now when you watch them play, and the skill set that they have. So very, very important for them to keep this momentum going. I pegged them to be a playoff team whenever I was asked about how the IceDogs would do. I had them anywhere between 6 to 8 with a lean towards 6. Now with this great start, you're starting to think, well, maybe there's higher aspirations that this team could have. I'm not going to say the name, but there was a player on another team. I know one of the parents, and she told me that her son, who plays in the OHL, said the IceDogs are going to have the best record in the Eastern Conference this year just by watching them play. So who knows? Yeah, and it's going to be tough because Barrie and Brampton are both formidable teams. So we'll see where the IceDogs kind of fare, but I don't think they're going to be a last-place team and mathematically still alive, but pretty much eliminated by the time December came around, and I think that's important. Yeah, it wasn't fun to call games in the second half of the season when, people are getting, players are getting traded, and you're getting draft picks back, which is great, and you're getting young players back, which is great, but there's a lot of growing pains. It wasn't pretty the second half of last season. Lots of one-sided games, lots of games in which there were 7, 8, even double figures goals given up. So hopefully, as I said, onwards and upwards for the rest of the year. So we're going to get to our post-game with IceDogs head coach Ben Boudreau tonight. And as always, that's brought to you by Wild Bill's Auto Repair, helping customers stay safe and confident on the road in Niagara since 2012 in honor of the late William Robert Hunter. Here is what the IceDogs head coach had to say following his team's 7-5 victory and heading into the Thanksgiving break with a 5-1 record.
That we did tonight was a resilient group. You can really tell that they were bought in. I mean, last night wasn't our great, but we didn't hold that over. We challenged them how they were going to respond. Are you going to learn from your mistakes? And tonight, everybody was phenomenal, and that's exactly what you want to see. The response was everything you could have written up, and they executed to a T. So I thought it was great.
Sure, and how important is that to do that? That's the first kind of little hiccup you had this year, to not let this slide, because you lose 2 games and you go on a break. Who knows what's going to happen, right?
Well, when you look around, a lot of teams have had the same coaches and the same system and the same kind of culture and the same expectations. We're establishing that right now. We are building that right now, and the first sense of adversity, was it a test that we failed? Absolutely. We didn't handle the adversity well. 4 goals in the second period. We couldn't come back on it, but what we did was, hey, this is what to expect in our culture. This is how you respond, and we issued them a challenge, and I thought they rose to the challenge, and that's exactly what you're hoping for. So, for a young group to respond like that, it's encouraging, and we can often look back and say, hey, remember when things didn't go our way? This is how we responded, and that's something that we're going to expect going forward.
Sure. IceDogs had a really nice game for you tonight. He's played well this year. What's the difference between this year and last year?
I just think a commitment to buy-in, but generally, I mean, it's really tough to compare last year. There's a coach's change, and same thing. I mean, anybody that had been here, it's adjustment after adjustment every time you keep making changes, right? And now I think there's a comfortability from a lot of players starting to set in. Being behind the bench now, I think this was my 59th game, so almost a full season where they're starting to understand a lot of the things, the way we play, what are the expectations, how we keep everybody accountable, and, Asadorian, is an offensive guy and wants to focus on the points, but when you looked at his, stats, he was a experienced player, and we told him to focus on the 5-on-5 defensive habits that'll lead to offense, and he was +4 tonight. Outside of the 2 goals and 1 assist, which was great, it was the +4 stat that really had you trusting him on the defensive side, and that's where you want to see is turning offense from defense, and he was big in that department for us.
Sure. And if you have him scoring, down on a third or fourth line or wherever he is, how important is that? Where you've got 2 lines scoring, and if you can get some offense from some other lines, that's huge, isn't it?
Well, I mean, you still look at it where Kevin scored and Rubric had 2 points and Loshko 3. I mean, your top line still factored in, but Galliano finally broke out. Had his first point, and Creeder had his first goal, and Doherty chipped in, and Asadorian 3 points, and Levin 2 assists, and it was a complete and total team effort from everybody tonight. First defensive goal of the season, so when we're not relying on the same line game in and game out, even though they did contribute, it was great to have a total and complete effort and see some guys get rewarded in that game.
Sure. And one other thing, in the third period there, you had a lead, maybe backed up a little bit. What'd you guys talk about trying to hold the lead in there in the third period?
Well, it's understanding how to play, and when you look at Ottawa, and we were trying to preserve, we were on our heels, and we let them take 50 shots, and that was the first game in the season for us, and we got to learn from those moments. And a great defense is a really good offense. So when you keep pressing them and not allowing them to attack, and it's frustrating, I think that's what we had to do, and we learned by through our history right there. So it was a great adjustment.
Looked like you were talking to Rubric there in the second period, really trying to get him locked in. What was the message you were trying to get to him in that moment?
Defense creates offense, and it's not the other way around where you cheat and you cheat and you cheat. You might get lucky every now and then, but really when you can play defense and go to offense, I mean that's the way you win as a group, and this is the things that we're trying to instill about how we're expected to play throughout the season. So Rubes is an unbelievable player with a high game sense IQ that really gets it. So when I'm talking to Rubes, a lot of them are just reminders of things that we've already talked about, and he's been a beast. I think he's had 3 straight multiple point games, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, the guy has been an absolute killer for us, and it's really fun to see. He's yet to even turn 17 right now. So, I mean, the quicker he gets those details in, quits cheating for offense, which, he hasn't really. A lot of the rush plays have come from defensive stands. This is a young star in the making in professional hockey, and he's really learning the right way to play. So it's just a lot of positive reaffirmation that he's doing the right things.
And you had to jumble up the lines tonight with Paris out, jumbled up a little bit of the forward lines, maybe sending a message to a couple of those guys you wanted to get going. You saw that tonight, and then you started the extra defenseman. Talk about what went into that situation going with the 7D tonight.
Well, I mean, essentially for us, anytime that we've gotten down, I mean, the home opener, we went with 11 forwards, and we played our top guys hard and hard. We didn't have a 3-and-3. We know we have 2 days off, so I mean, even shortening the bench up front, we wanted to go with our top 11 guys with experience rather than put, say, a Dianov in for the first time. And I even think DeWatcher just, helped out with, I think it was under 2 or 3 minutes, so it wasn't much. But our top 11, our top 6, we just kept playing them and rolling. And you talked about the role players, both Levin and Gallianov moved to the 4th line for the first time this season, and 3 points combined between the 2 of them is exactly how you want to see that type of team respond. So, as a group, up and down the lineup, everybody found a way to contribute, and that's a huge 2 points for us. And like I said, going into Thanksgiving weekend at the top of the conference, let alone division, I don't know if anybody had that on their bingo card at the start of the season, but we're happy we're there one way or the other, and we'll definitely take it.
Lastly, last night you talked about that not being your best effort, but when you look at it as a whole, coming out 5-1, as you mentioned, hitting a Thanksgiving break, what's the message to the guys now as they take a couple of days off, get back with family, but then get refocused for another big week next week and not getting too ahead of yourselves?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we learned our lesson of what it's like to keep the pedal down on the floor, because we got a little bit complacent. We thought it was going to come easy, especially scoring 2 goals in the first 10 minutes of last night's game, right? So we just hope that history doesn't repeat itself with our tendencies, and we learn from it. And this is a hungry team, and when it's going well, you want to keep it going well. So I'm happy all these kids are starting to experience a little bit of success within the Niagara IceDogs organization. And there should be a lot of positive moments and a lot of fun stories over the dinner table this Thanksgiving weekend compared to years past. So it's something that we're pretty happy about.
Favorite dish on Thanksgiving?
To be honest, I'm not a turkey guy. I don't know if that's a popular decision, but if I could, I'd be a prime rib guy all day. So, give me the meat and the potatoes. I'm pretty simple. Just I got a little preference with what type of meat.
Thanks, Coach. See you next week.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
There was IceDogs head coach Ben Boudreau on the Wild Bills auto repair postgame. Stevie's not a turkey guy. He's a prime rib guy, but
very disappointing, by the way.
I do enjoy me some turkey. I'm just not a big stuffing guy. That's my one thing.
I love stuffing.
I know it's unpopular opinion. I'm not a stuffing guy, so everybody can roast me out there. But regardless, getting into the meat and potatoes of that, pardon the pun, of that post game, what did you think of that, Steve?
I was pretty happy with his team. I think we've kind of addressed a lot of points that he did about the resilience. He minimized some of the aspects of the game that didn't go so well, and that's fine because, you come in and you win the game. That's really the bottom line, right? You get the 2 points, you move on, and you get ready after a couple of days off for next weekend. I did find it very interesting talking about Ryan Robrick and, of course, how special he is draft eligible not till after next year. I mean, this guy is headed towards top 5 or 10 status at the minimum. He's that special, and he's killing penalties too, so they're playing him in all situations.
Yeah, there was a couple things that he mentioned about not getting complacent and not working hard against Owen Sound and being too individualistic. He liked the fight back from guys like Asadorian and Galianov tonight. And going with that extra defenseman, he said he wanted to put his most experienced players out there. And Darcy DeWatcher, still a young defenseman in this league, but he goes in as that extra 7th defenseman tonight. Do you think that helped in any sense?
I mean, listen, the IceDogs, these are young guys, right? So you could double shift a 4th line every once, with a player and a center man. So I don't have a problem with that. I don't know, 7 defensemen, to me, I'd rather have an even number because you're playing with your defense partner, familiarity and things like that. But, you go with the 7th defenseman and he sits on the bench the whole game. That's hockey at this level, right? So, on the whole, I'd rather see the 6th defenseman. But, if you're playing hard, it's not like you're 3-3, right? You are playing back-to-back, but you're at home, so you're back in your own beds, basically. So it was a good time to kind of roll with the 11 forwards.
I found it interesting when they were talking about Asadorian there, when Bill Potras from BPSN asked him about what you've seen from him, and it sounds like they wanted him to work on his full two-way game there, and he was a minus player last year, +4 tonight, and that to Ben Boudreau as the head coach was more important and impressive to him than even the 2 goals, 1 assist night.
Yeah, Asadorian kind of got lost a little bit, in the shuffle last year. He missed about a third of the season with injury. His numbers were down, so you kind of wonder. I was wondering if he was going to be somebody they might trade in the offseason. I'm happy he's back because he's a good player. He's an effective player. Another guy who's an excellent penalty killer, can play the power play, and really handles things quite well there. So he's got those all-round game-type assets that he can use, and tonight they all came to play.
Anything else you want to mention that Ben Boudreau went on about 6 minutes there?
Well, if you're getting a coach to talk for 6 minutes, then that's a good night for you, unless he's like ranting and raving about the team. So he's very calm, very relaxed right now. The team is 5-1. Again, couple home games next weekend as they continue at home. So, I'm sure, pun intended, he's pretty thankful for what his team has been able to do, especially tonight, because you don't want to go into that Thanksgiving break with 2 straight losses in which you lose leads.
Yeah, and you don't want that to linger around until their next game next Thursday. But quickly on Charlie Robertson, because he's coming in a tough situation. Owen Flores started every game, gets in that goalie fight, gets suspended. Charlie comes in, finishes off that game the other night, and then has a little bit of a rusty performance against the Owen Sound attack, but gets right back in the net on a back-to-back against his former North Bay Battalion teammates. And he kept them in this game because the shots on net that we talked about in the first segment today were 48-28 in favor of the Battalion. So Charlie Robertson stopped 43 in this game, and I think it was almost an underrated performance from the IceDogs goaltender.
Yeah, it was very strong. Strong performance, and you give up 5 goals, but you're facing 48 shots, and that happened a lot with the IceDogs last year. But, he made a number of key saves. He's so very good because he's a taller goalie, 6'4", at being able to track pucks and see them through traffic. And so, he's very, very good down low, made a number of good saves, and you can't really fault him too much on the goals that were scored tonight. So, I was really happy that he got the win. He bounced back after, I'd say, an okay performance last night, but not something that, we can hang your hat on. He's a very, very good goalie. So, I was happy he got the W tonight.
So before we get out of here, we're going to put our guest, Steve Clark, on I guess, on
Don't
the hot
say
seat.
on the spot, on the hot seat. I've been here for 45 minutes. I've lots of time to think about it.
You've had lots of time, but we're trying to pump it up for you anyway. So it's our stick tap of the game, brought to you by Hockey Stick Man, Pro Stock hockey sticks from major junior teams all the way up to the NHL teams for half the retail price. A stress-free shopping experience from start to finish. Check them out at hockeystickman.ca to join their mission of saving hockey families money. Steve, you got a lot of options tonight, so who is your stick tap of the game going to?
Yeah, I went back and forth a little bit with this. I'm going to give it to Alex Asadorian. I thought we've talked about him a lot here, and there's good reason. He gets 2 goals. It's very, very important. You know, chips in with an assist, and he set up Gallianoff, who really desperately needed a goal. And as you said, he was +4. So, you know, somebody who works hard. He does those things. He kills penalties. He plays on the power play. All the things he said. And tonight he put it all together, and the stats bared it out. 2 goals and 1 assist, and that +4 that was needed. And he's, you know, back around a point-a-game player. So he gets my stick tap of the game.
So 2 goals and assists for Asadorian, 2 goals assists for Loshko, 2 assists for Brody, 2 assists for Mike Levin, 2 assists for Ryan Robrick, all with multi-point games as well. So that's encouraging to see. Anybody else you want to mention that was maybe an unsung hero that maybe didn't show up on the score sheet that you liked their game tonight?
Doherty had a nice assist to set up the 1 goal, I think it was scored, but 2nd goal by Asadorian. And I want to shout out Mason Ray. Mason Ray is a guy, to me, has a lot of potential in that bottom 6, playing that role. You know, and he had 1 shift in which he was dominant. He had a couple shots. He threw 3 hits. That's the type of player that he can be. So I do want to shout out how effective he was.
Yeah, that was definitely somebody, and you almost everybody that Ben Boudreau had wanted to step up from last game, they did that tonight, and that's encouraging to see from the Ice Dogs players that they can get to that extra gear. So we'll see what happens. But Steve, thanks a lot for jumping in for Cam tonight, who's day-to-day, but really appreciate you coming on and doing our pregame reports all season long and being able to jump in tonight before Thanksgiving. Hope you have a great dinner.
Yeah, certainly you too as well. Happy to do it.
Absolutely. So that's going to wrap up our Niagara IceDogs game recap, number 6 of the season for the Niagara IceDogs. Thank you to everybody listening today on your favorite on-demand audio platform the next day that this comes out, and thank you to everybody that tuned in live on YouTube Live. Please give us a like, subscribe, and smash that bell if you want to be notified whenever we do record again for our live game recaps. So for Steve Clark, my name is Brandon Caputo. IceDogs 7, North Bay Battalion 5, right here at the Meridian Centre in front of 3010. We'll see you guys next week for another IceDogs game recap right here on the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of your Niagara IceDogs. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours, and we'll talk to you again next week.